In this video, we're going to look at how to put in the pin tags. The pin tags are completely gadget free with me. I think that you want to learn first how it goes, and then maybe you can get yourself a gadget. So you want to put these in as perfect as you can, or 4 centimeters in the middle and yay amount of inches. And then you can put your lace in the center. Make sure that your lace is not bigger than 4 centimeters wide, because otherwise it'll interfere with the pin tags. So let's get on now and put those pin tags in.
For the pin tags, you want to open out your fabric, and then you've got two methods of doing it. You can either just fold them over like this and then go and iron them. That is the one method, or you can mark your pin tags. And I'm just going to quickly do the first method so that we can see how that works. I'm going to iron in my pin tags, and if this was a dress with a flower print, for example, surely that would be good enough. But here you will see that because I've got the pin tags fairly close together, it does actually push out and it won't be perfectly even. So I'm just doing the last couple here, and then we're going to have a look at it. And I could see it straight away that it wasn't even. And I thought, well, that's not good enough. I like these to be absolutely perfect. And when I measured them, I found one was a couple of millimeters out, which is not a lot and doesn't matter at all if it's like a printed busy fabric. But if you're making this, say you're making this for a wedding, could be, couldn't it? Or me, in my case, a really pretty Christmas dress, then you're much better off getting your textile marker out and marking it. So I'm going to mark first the two center ones, and then I'm going to measure both to the side, the 2 centimeters, and that's 0.8 of an inch to the side. So we're going to mark these and measure them out really well, and that gives you a much better line to work with. So I'm measuring my 0.8 over, or 2 centimeters. I have to mention the inches because people say, oh, you're always just talking centimeters. I actually have to go to inch converter every single time I do this. If you have a set square, then you can also use the lines on here, which is a little bit more accurate actually than measuring over. That'll give you the perfect distance, and you can draw the line down there. And you can see that there's a huge difference on the last one I had ironed in. See, it really does push over when you've already got one ironed in and you do the next one, even with a stable Dupion silk like this. The one thing I would advise you to do is to just iron on the edge, because in my case, the steam started to take out the textile marker immediately. So that was a bit clever of me. So make sure that you just do the edge. And there I had worked that one out. By the time I got to my second one, I thought, oh no. And do the last two. And then when we compare them, we will find that that was a much, much better method of doing it. And as you can see, they look absolutely perfect. You know, you look at them, you go, yeah, that's fine. So I'm now ready to go over to my sewing machine. And now we need 0.2 of an inch or 5 mil. And you start at the waistline. You don't start at the top, because if it has sucked in a little bit of fabric there, your machine, then that's okay. At the lower end, we have that 1 centimeter seam allowance anyway. So always start at the lower end. It's the same when you put buttonholes in. You always start where people don't immediately look. And so we're going to put these all in nice and slow, lining up. With a mark on the presser foot, but also there's that mark on the sewing machine, and you can't do this fast. Just take your time, and your presser foot will actually sit edge to edge almost to the next pin tag. Now, if you have a little gadget which does perfect pin tags, you could of course use that as well. I have seen them and they're brilliant, but I tend to rather go by eyesight, and I think it's not a bad idea to be able to do all of this perfectly before you use a gadget, because gadgets stop you from concentrating on what you're doing. very much like all of us using Google Maps these days and not using a map anymore, and that part of our brain doesn't even work anymore where you can tell which direction to go. We are completely directionless now, especially the young generation. They can no longer do that. So I think it's very important before you use the gadgets to be able to do this properly. And so I'm putting my front piece over the edge a little bit and then have a bit of tension in there and pull it a bit and iron those pin tucks towards the center back, away from the center front. Do that on both sides. Perfect. These are really nice. Now I'm very pleased with those. Now, because I'm using ivory silk, I'm using one of my lining pieces as an interlining because it's too see-through. Because of the whiteness of this piece, it's very see-through and I don't want any of the seams to show through, so I'm using this as interlining. If you have a really stable cotton, of course you don't need to do that. So pin it in the corners and then I'm just going to use this as if it was one piece. Next, I'm going to put some lace on, and the lace has a width of 4 centimeters or 1.8 inches. And that's important to know. I bought about 3 laces, and when I got back, I found that only this one fitted on. So make sure that it's the correct width that you get. And you could also put more lace on the outside, but I didn't want it to be too busy, so I just left it like that. And now I'm going to sew this on either side. Find somewhere on your lace where you think, oh, nobody's going to see it here, and use a color that blends in really well. That might be the color of the lace, so you have to change the thread. In my case, the ivory was perfect, just blended in really nicely. And would have been better than any of the gold thread, because to get that color right would be really, really difficult. Now, when you come up to the other side, you will find that the lace pushes more. It's a little bit like putting a zip in. One side always seems to push a little bit more. I don't know if you noticed that. So in that case, take a pin out and just hold the lace down. Don't let it push, because we want it to be perfect. Now I can put my front piece on. I pin it in some strategic spots here. On the other side as well. And then one more thing is to check whether I've actually put it on correctly, right? So I'm folding my front piece over and I line up the side seams, and then I check whether I've done it all right. And you can see here it's not quite right. So something has gone wrong. I work with a lot of layers, easily done, so best to check yourself. And now it's perfect. The other thing you can do, especially if in the end you are sewing down that little bit of collar, you can cut away layers. I'm cutting away the silk layer. I could also cut away the interlining as well, maybe a little bit higher up, so that I only have 2 layers in the shoulder seam. So you can easily do that to make it a little bit thinner. And here I'm just doing it to the silk, but as an afterthought, I thought, well, maybe I could have just cut the interlining away as well.